Hi, my name is Shoma Jurgensen. I'm the instructor for B233 Principles of Management, and today we're going to talk about leadership and power. In this section, we're going to talk about the difference between leadership and management, the different theories of leadership that I'd like to clarify, and sources of power that leaders use while they're managing or inspiring an organization. So first, leading and managing. It's important to note that there is an overlap, although you're looking at an image here that has a table to it, that leadership is about designing change, while management is about promoting change. So one can be a manager, manager who is also a leader. One can be a leader, inspiring people, innovating and creating, asking questions to challenge the status quo and why the business is or is not doing the right thing, while not being the manager, the one that's responsible for organizing people, consolidating and building the business, planning and budgeting, effective action. Now, these two things are not mutually exclusive, yet one does not necessarily mean the other. And I really like this quote that is designed to talk to principles about leadership and management, but it can very easily be converted to talking about those in business. So in terms of who leads, leadership is happening in the classroom, the hallways, the playground. In this case, I would say it's happening in the cubicles, the hallways, the lunchrooms, and management is happening in your office. So if you are very tied to your office, your email, the things that you do, you will miss the chance to engage in leadership. So let's talk about some of the leadership theories, some of the ways that we've talked about leading in history. All right? One of these categories is the behavioral category. And the important thing to note about the behavioral theory is that the idea is one set of behaviors that encompasses the idea of your focus on task and that balance to your focus on relationship, that one way covers all situations. Okay? So you balance your behavior between task and relationship, thinking not necessarily about what situation, the flexibility of how you lead and manage, but that a combination of task and relationship will fit any situation. Now, situational leadership becomes just a little bit more complicated because as our understanding of leadership developed from this understanding that you either were born with it or not, which has really been disproved in a lot of ways. Otherwise, there would not be leadership training, leadership coaching. Okay, but in the situational leadership, there is a combination, and how you lead depends on the employee or employees you are leading, which is why in situational leadership, knowing each employee and adjusting your style accordingly is paramount to this style. So you might think, well, I can't imagine a leader being in this telling category. I would expect leaders to be in this delegating category. Let me use some examples from students that I have had. So I've had a student who is a manager at a movie theater. Typically, the employees at the movie theater are high school students. They have a very low readiness to lead in general. Okay, and there is low relationship between them and the manager and them and the job. It's typically a job. They're trying to earn some extra money. There are high degrees of turnover, very little skill specialization, right? So in this case, you might want, as a manager, to lead in a very telling way. You want to guide and direct these employees. Now, you might find an employee that you believe has some leadership potential. In this case, you are looking at an employee that has some moderate readiness. You're seeing potential, but they have to develop their competency. There is a high relationship between task and relationship. So they are understanding how important it is to be connected to their company and to their manager in order to succeed. Now, in this case, You might not simply want to tell this employee what to do at every stage, what we think of as micromanaging. Instead, you might want to sell your ideas. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Were you really wanting to get on board with me on this promotion? And then as their task readiness increases, their task readiness increases, then you're inviting them more into participation in that management. All right, so I'm following this one employee now that has higher potential. They're learning skills. You don't want them just buying into your ideas. You want them bringing ideas to you, to the table. And while you're in this participation stage, you're also you're still giving them more direction because they're learning to take on those tasks. Now, when you get into this observing monitoring, this particular employee has not only shown great judgment, high creativity, but the ability to get the job done. Therefore, you have developed a trust with this employee, and you back off on how closely you are how closely you're guiding the behavior. So you actually pull away from the relationship a little bit, allowing that employee to build and develop. All right. Now, again, you see how flexibility is required even in just this one employee. If I'm managing a group of, let's say, faculty, highly educated, highly specialized employees, I am certainly not going to start in this telling category. I am going to adjust my leadership style to the situation, and depending on their experience in teaching, I might be in this participating in or delegating area. All right, but certainly not in telling or selling with that type of employee. That's just one type of situational leadership theory. Another is this idea of path goal, right? And I love this illustration because you notice here, subordinates is one way to put it, but employees, all right? Employees are set on a path by management. They have particular goals and tasks they're able to complete, okay? Obstacles will get in the way. Either it's an unclear definition of goals. They're not sure what their path is. And your job as a leader is to remove those obstacles and provide support, all right? So that these obstacles do not disrupt the path to the employee's end goal. One very critical piece here is motivation that this illustration did not work in. So it's not just removing obstacles from their ability to define the path and meet their goal. It's also understanding at the end goal what motivates them to get there and providing the right motivation for the right employee at the right time so that everything aligns. All right? It's a great theory. The next in our trio of theories to take a look at that our textbook specifically in our course deals with is this idea of transformational leadership. So if in behavioral we talked about the relationship between a task and your relational or personal connection with your employees. Situational talked about, so that was process. Situational talked more about the employee itself, the team, the collaboration. And finally, transformational looks at the environment overall, kind of the entire goal or vision, and how is everyone aligned in this quest for the company's mission. So if you take a look at the first is to really give meaning to work. Do your administrative assistants understand how they contribute to the overall mission of the company? If not, then there's not transformational leadership in that organization, right? So you really know what meaning your work has. And then you want to be empathetic. You want to understand and communicate and inspire your teams to create confidence and trust, because with that brings innovation and creativity to solve problems. You are not telling people how to solve problems. They are so connected to the reason that they are at work every day. And I will guarantee you, with transformational leaders, if you ask an employee why they're there, they will not say for a paycheck, because everyone is there to survive. But for some, their leaders transform their reason to be at work to a completely new level. So what is that? This idea of continuous and never-ending improvement of themselves and their organizations. When there's transformational leadership, then individual output increases. And that is a very important result of transformational leadership. Now, there's a lot of ways to be a transformational leader. I want to talk about a couple of theories that I find kind of went through a faddish spike in discussion and then now has dropped off a little bit. And the two are a variation of servant leadership. One is this idea of the leader as servant. You are there to share leadership, to value your people. So typically when someone says, oh, you did a great job, you're giving responsibility for that great job to the people on your team and the people in your community. And you're not just doing it to take the spotlight off yourself, or you truly value the relationship that the skills of the people on your team bring to your success. All right, and so you take your time to develop those people, build that network of community, and you do so authentically. All right, you're not practicing a way to lead. This is an expression of who you are when you provide leadership. All right. Another way to look at that, if you look at the book Good to Great, Level 5 leadership has a lot of these components of servant leadership. And Level 5 leadership talks about a combination or a balance of humility, all right, of this personal humility that you are not in the center, and determination or will. Okay, so this is not someone who is humble and, if you will allow me to use the cliche, a mat to be stepped on. Okay, this is somebody who understands the vision of the organization and has an intense professional will to get there, but understands they can't do so without the values and the strength of the people around them. So this type of leadership can be very transformational to an organization. And when you talk about persuading people toward a goal or a mission, where you get your power becomes very important, right? In this case, I have added one of the sources of power that can come from servant leadership and level 5 leadership to the traditional 5. Okay, so in this case, there are 3 position powers that come from your position. Think of that as your title or your place on the organizational chart. Okay, first is legitimate power. Quick story: when I first started teaching, I had this class, and it was maybe my second week in the course, and I said to everyone, all right, get out your pens, flip to a new piece of paper, write your name at the top, and then we're going to do an activity. And I was stunned. Everybody did that. Now, I was new to teaching, and so, and the people that I managed it at a higher level. So people who I wasn't telling and directing, if you use the situational view of leadership. These were people that I would have to persuade, inspire, and encourage to their highest potential. So all of a sudden, the legitimate power I had as an instructor caused all of my students to pull out pens and paper and write their name at the top. For a split second, I thought, my goodness, what else could I get them to do? Of course, that's where you start then to cross the line between those leaders that are ethical and those that aren't. I did not abuse my legitimate power in that instance, okay? But when you get to this idea of position power, as an instructor, I have the ability to reward your behavior or punish your behavior. All right, so coercive power is the ability to punish. I have worked for managers that the reason I did things was because I didn't want to get in trouble. That's the use of coercive power. All right. Then I have also been in relationships where I did things because I wanted a reward. right? Parenting is a lot like a lot of the management and leadership theories. Okay, so this is the idea of giving a child an incentive to finish their vegetables, right? You have a reward system built into your educational experience, or at least this is the traditional view of education, that if you perform well or do certain things, you're rewarded with grades. Now, that has actually hurt the ability of a lot of people to lead, because they either wait for punishment or reward versus what can come from personal power. Okay, so in our course, as you know, the power that I have as your legitimate leader is to review your work, okay, and if you are able to demonstrate your understanding, you are rewarded with the grade that you earned, all right? And if you are, for example, late in submitting your assignment, I have the power to punish you, if you will, with a deduction. Now, the behavior I'm trying to elicit is that of professionalism, because in the workplace, there's a lot more than losing 10% for not doing your job on time. You can lose your job for not performing on time, and that is a much bigger punishment than a 10% off a 20-point assignment. Okay, so we're looking for some behavioral changes here. Now, personal power is also at play of managers or leaders in the classroom, right? One area is this area of expertise. So as students, you look toward your instructor to lead you through a course because they have an expertise in the subject matter, right? The idea of referent power is that you want to be like that person. You think that they care about your success. You see the successes that they've gained, and you know that they are there to support you. Therefore, the reason you will do A or B is because you understand and you have an example of the kind of influence you can have if you develop the kind of expertise your instructor does, right? But one very clear base of power from teaching is this idea of humility, all right? Because a teacher cannot teach without students. So I can't say, hey, I taught a great class without the participation of my team, which are my students. So this idea of humility or level 5 or servant leadership is very integrated into a teaching experience or a management experience. You cannot lead without employees. Okay? You cannot transform your business without a community. And so these become far more long-term and long-lasting sources of power. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on some of the basics of leadership, management, and power. Thank you.